Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's day 3 of the NFL draft. It is quarter to 12 here on the East Coast. We were getting ready for kicking off day 3. We tried to get on a little bit earlier. Technical glitch kind of prevented us from doing that. But we are here, as you can see on the screen. I am Ian Glendon. Of course, I am with our FPC Chiefs managing editor and the guy who's basically manning our full press NFL account, Mr. Braden Holecek. Braden, good afternoon, good morning. I think you're in Central Time, so I guess it's still good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. It's been a couple of fun days, some shocks for sure, but yeah, it's like every year. I think always fun to see what value is still on the board going into day 3, and we still have some tremendous players still out there too.
Yeah, I mean, this draft coming into it, I mean, it's always a crapshoot every single year, but this year more so because you've had so many obviously different circumstances with the pandemic and how, some schools didn't even play football last year. You had some players that decided to opt out that still went in the top 15 in the draft. So there was a lot of projection. There was a lot of, trying to discern which circumstances are important and which weren't when it comes to evaluating players this past year. But it's been interesting. I'll be honest, and I complained about this a lot on FPC Radio Live on Friday. I hated the whole chair thing. Like, that was so stupid. I was so sick of it. Like, the second it came out, and then they ended up utilizing it the entire first round. It was brutal. It was brutal. I don't know how you felt about it. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I thought even like the entire opening was so weird. I didn't know if like the Jaguars were even on the clock. It was so like delayed. I didn't even know what was going on until like 20 minutes into what I thought the start time would have been. So yeah, it was really, really, really awkward opening.
Yeah, I mean, we've come to expect that from the NFL, especially during the first round. I mean, obviously we went through 2 rounds yesterday quicker than we did essentially the first round on Thursday. But, again, it feels like every year it just gets dragged out longer and longer and longer. But regardless, the first round has come and gone. The second round, third round, the Chiefs have actually picked. If we would have talked this time yesterday, they would still be waiting to make their first selection. But let's focus real quick on the first round because we don't have a whole lot of time here for breaking this down. We want to get right into day 3, which starts at noon, or so they say. We finally got an answer to this quarterback jumble that we've been talking about for months, it feels like. And obviously we knew Trevor Lawrence was going first overall. We knew Zach Wilson was going second overall. That was pretty much it. But then it came down to pick number 3. And I want to get your thoughts on Trey Lance because for weeks, it was Mac Jones at number 3. Mac Jones at number 3. He just happens to end up with the New England Patriots. We'll get to them in a moment, but I want to get your thoughts on Trey Lance specifically and how you feel this played out for the 49ers. Was it the right pick? Was it the wrong pick? What do you think?
I guess starting off personally, I probably would have went with Justin Fields just because I think he's probably the most NFL ready to play right now. But I think from a 49ers perspective and just hearing when they met with him in interviews and how smart they thought he was effective, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think his dual threat ability is part of another reason why they probably like him. So those are kind of the top things when watching Trey Lance, the smarts and the dual threat ability that really stood out to me. So going to be really interesting to see how long they take it with him, if he's going to even play at all this year. Maybe Garoppolo only plays half the season, but yeah, I think it's not really a surprise given how the last couple weeks were handled going in.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the idea that the 49ers were going to get any value for Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, was more of a figment of media speculation, mostly up here in, not up here, I'm not up there anymore, but up in New England, where there was just an obsession with the former draft pick of the Patriots. But, the reality of it is this is a guy that, is pushing 30 and doesn't play a lot. And there's a long history of injuries in such a short amount of time. So the idea of them going to quarterback was not surprising. The fact that they couldn't move Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion, was not surprising. And, I kind of, if I had a favorite of the three, I'd probably go with, Fields as well. But, again, it's so hard to project so early on with these kids. And so for me, like, as someone obviously who's a fan of the Patriots, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I know what I've seen from Mac Jones, but I don't know how that's going to translate into the NFL. And that's the same way I feel about, Trey Lance and Fields and all that. So, we talk about it all the time. And just a few years ago, Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, 1 and 2. Where are they? Not with the teams that drafted them. So there's a lot of hope, obviously, and it doesn't always work out for these teams. But the 49ers obviously kind of, I don't know if they necessarily, in the eyes of the media, I guess they threw a curveball, but maybe other teams kind of knew where they were looking ahead of time, because they said they made up their mind late with Trey Lance, and they were kind of thinking Mac Jones the whole time. And I felt that when they made that trade, they knew who they were going to pick. Now, in that time, did they change their mind? Perhaps they could have. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but part of me also starts to think that maybe Trey Lance was the guy the whole time, and this back and forth and all that was just kind of a to keep things interesting. And it certainly did, because the 49ers were in the news quite a bit. So I guess I'll ask you a general question. Of those 5 quarterbacks that went in the first round, or, yeah, 5, I'm sorry. I thought I miscounted there for a second. No, of those 5 quarterbacks, who do you think is not necessarily the most talented? Because I think we can easily sit there and say, well, Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be, or you would think would be the best of the 5, but who do you think is in the best situation of those 5?
I go with Trey Lance. Looking at the offense they've built the last couple of years, getting Brandon Ayuk in the first round, Deebo Samuel a couple of years ago, and George Kittle. If he's not the best tight end in the league, if you put Kelsey up there, he's number 2. So yeah, I think you look at the weapons around him, and everyone talks about Kyle Shanahan's offense, but I think Trey Lance is actually one of those guys that could take that to the next level. So and bring San Francisco up a level from where they're at already. So I actually think Lance.
Oh, sorry, I think you cut out there for that end there cut out. So you said Lance was, and then it stopped there for me.
Oh yeah, I think. Just what San Francisco's built for him. I think that's going to allow him to kind of take 49ers to the next level from where they've already been, and they've already achieved a lot of great success with Shanahan. But yeah, I think Lance is probably in the best situation.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue that. Again, I mean, we. Obviously the 49ers did not have a great season last year, but I don't think anyone's going to sit here and pretend like injuries and circumstances didn't have a big part of that. And, look, when Jimmy Garoppolo was out there, they won games. I'm not, trying to downplay his impact, but that's the thing. I mean, you can't, you can only count on him, maybe 50% of the time. And maybe that's not a fair designation for Jimmy G, but it is what it is. And it's obviously, given 49ers cause for concern, because they went out and traded up to make this pick. So it'll be interesting, like I said, to see how these players shake out. Again, not everyone was going to sit here and say when Patrick Mahomes got drafted that he was going to go and win an MVP in his first year, win a Super Bowl. So, people were more looking at the top of the draft and not necessarily, in that middle part of the first round. So, all right. So outside of quarterbacks, we'll again, we're going to try to rapid fire through some of these things because we only have a little bit of time here. But of the rest of the draft, I want to say Denver was intriguing, not necessarily in a, oh, wow, they had a great draft or they had a poor draft. Just, I almost feel like, and other people have said this as well, I feel like they were drafting with the expectation that they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. And either that or, again,
I really did not think about that, honestly.
well, because if you think about it, like, yeah, I mean, adding the cornerback was a Horn, right?
Sertan.
So I'm sorry, not Horn. Yeah, Sertan. I'm sorry. I've been staring at names like as you have the last 2 days, and it's just a mashup. But adding Sertan, I mean, you're building a one way or the other. You're building a great defense, and regardless of if they get a quarterback, having that secondary in that division, obviously with Mahomes and obviously Justin Herbert, is a good thing and a necessity for defense in that. But I feel like they clearly don't believe they have a quarterback. And this isn't a knock on Teddy Bridgewater, but you don't go and get Teddy Bridgewater with the vision of him being a Super Bowl winning franchise quarterback. I mean, that might be harsh, but it is what it is. I mean, he had a very promising career that unfortunately, got derailed with the injury, and he's been kind of a guy that's bounced around a little bit the last couple of years. So I can't imagine that Denver is going into next season thinking, yeah, we're going to get something out of Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. They seem like the only team that kind of checks all the boxes when it comes to being a good trade partner for Green Bay, and I feel like if they didn't have the confidence that they could eventually make this deal, I feel like they had to have taken a quarterback in that position. Like maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just overvaluing what they needed to do, or maybe I'm overestimating John Elway because again, he hasn't been. Let's not pretend like he's been good at deciding quarterbacks. That's not been his strength, coincidentally. Except for Peyton Manning falling into his lap, and I'm not going to give him a whole hell of a lot of credit for that. But to me, I feel like they drafted with Aaron Rodgers in mind, and specifically Aaron Rodgers. And look, this is a story I don't think is necessarily going away, based on what we've heard and some of the stories that are coming out. This feels like this isn't over yet, so I think Denver still has an opportunity to do so. But I like their draft. I feel like they could greatly regret not taking a quarterback, especially when there was a few of them still available.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that going into this I've kind of been saying as far as Vic Fangio. I feel like looking at next year's class, I don't get the warm and fuzzies about it necessarily. So being that high in the order, this may be the last time that Vic Fangio has a chance before it passes him by, so to speak, to get his guy. Fields was still there, of course. Mac Jones was still there, so. Who knows? They may be able to pull off a trade for Rodgers in the end. But yeah, I think this is clearly a team. If they get the right quarterback, they could be back in the playoffs, I think, instantaneously.
Yeah, and one of the things that I talked about too on Friday when we on FBC Radio when we were talking about the Rodgers situation is I personally don't think that there's many situations out there that are better than Green Bay. However, it still seems that we're almost approaching unable to repair relationship territory, and I don't think Amari Rodgers necessarily swings that pendulum in the other direction. And we know that based on when the Packers potentially trade him, it could be a cap saving. So post June 1st, they're going to save a lot of money if they trade him after that, as opposed to trading him now. Obviously, the benefit to trading him now or within the last couple days would have been the immediate draft return. And if you really had a guy in mind that high up in the draft, you could have gotten him. But that doesn't change the fact that Green Bay could still decide to pull the trigger because, look, I mean, they have a lot of leverage. But ultimately, if Aaron Rodgers wants to pull a Carson Palmer, he's certainly within his rights to do that, and he'll eventually find himself on another team. And if Denver's a team that, with the right quarterback, instantly turns into a contender. And that's why, to me, it kind of checks all the boxes for the next team for Aaron Rodgers and the type of team that would make that move. Like, see, and that's the thing. Go back to Peyton Manning. That's the type of move John Elway would make. I think he realizes he's not the best quarterback talent evaluator. Let's be real here. I mean, he twice signed Brock Osweiler. Twice. Not once, twice. And again, the long list post Peyton Manning is not great either. So, I feel like this is definitely the move that Elway would love to make. It would be a great move for them, obviously. Obviously, depending on what they give up, I can't imagine that they would give up anything more than draft picks and maybe a depth player at this point. Because again, as valuable as Aaron Rodgers is, he's still 36, 37 years old, and you got to play the guessing game as to when his talent and skill is going to kind of drop off a little bit, if it does. So I mean, the jury's out, I think, on Denver, because if they do pull off this trade, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, they beefed up that secondary against, obviously having the two teams that they in their division in mind when it comes to doing that. And all of a sudden they have a quarterback and a pretty talented offense, because they went and got the running back too with their second pick, which again, if they go out and get Aaron Rodgers, that looks a lot better. If they don't, and they're going into the season thinking, oh, well, here it's Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock. It's their show. That's when you start scratching your head. You're like, okay, maybe they swung and missed here a little bit on what they should have done, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think even adding minors later on, it's kind of an interesting mix with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, because I think adding the running back and minors that kind of power style of offense. So it's it's a really weird dynamic, I think, when you put those two quarterbacks into perspective, especially Drew Lock, who's not obviously going to be a guy that is going to be a drop back passer as much as Teddy. So yeah, it's a really weird dynamic. I was really shocked when they took Williams and kind of sniped Miami there.
Yeah, and again, we'll see how it plays out. It's only May, it is May actually. So we got a lot of time between now and the season. So all right, before we let everyone get to the draft, because again we got on a little late, so this is a very 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 brief show. I want you to give me your favorite pick of the first three rounds, no matter what position, what team, doesn't matter. What was your favorite pick, and who is a guy that you have your eye on for any team this upcoming next several hours?
Wow.
Putting you
I
on
think
the spot,
favorite,
I know.
I think favorite pick for me has to be probably one of my favorite receivers down to Washington. I think this team's had one of the best off seasons so far of any team, and you look at what kind of they were able to do going into the draft, kind of go with mostly a best player available approach. And I thought I would have took Brown in the first round if I were a GM. So I think you add in what they already have with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. You got three vertical threats there for Ryan Fitzpatrick. So a little bit later than I thought he'd be picked at 82, but I like what Washington's building there.
Yeah, I agree. And for today, who you got your eye on? Who's the one guy that you're surprised is still there, but is going to make some team happy when they finally pick him?
I think I have to go with North Carolina running back Michael Carter. I think he can be kind of a dual threat guy, be just as dangerous in the receiving game. So I also think he's a little underrated in pass protection, plays bigger than his size. So yeah, Michael Carter, would not be surprised if he went off the board fairly early today.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because at a couple weeks ago, prior to the Buccaneers signing Gio Bernard, one of the players, and I'm still not ruling it out necessarily, one of the players that I thought might be a third day good option for them was Carter, because again, like you said, dual threat ability, the ability to pass catch, which was, if you're gonna say this team had any flaws, it was inconsistency from the running backs in the passing game. So All right. Well, Braden, I know this is the start of yet another long day, but it's the final day of the NFL draft. Surely we're going to be on here throughout the week and getting ready to do some more live NFL draft coverage and give our reactions, hopefully, to a pretty exciting day 3. If not, it's just going to drag on and on and on for the next several hours. So enjoy the draft, folks, and we will talk to you soon.